Barry Neufeld is a friend. He's a friend from Chilliwack. He's a former school board trustee, and he's just been. It's been basically like a witch hunt. The BCTF, the union, has come after him, and now the Human Rights Board has come after him. But this case is not just about Barry Neufeld. This case is going to set precedent. Whether he wins or loses, it will set precedent either way. And should he lose, it's going to affect all BC residents, not just Barry, but all of us when it comes to freedom of speech, the things we say online, and that's what this case is about.
My husband attended a rally with Billboard Chris.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And a great big tall trans woman, like 6'4", threw my husband, shoved my husband to the ground, and they were punching. Billboard Chris had a bloody nose. I mean, they were very violent.
So much for being a woman.
So much for being a woman. And all Billboard Chris was doing was standing in the back quietly, willing to engage with anyone that wanted to talk nicely, which is all he ever does. My husband recently passed away. And both him and I were on this same, we shouldn't hurt children. It's wrong. And both of us, years ago, decades ago, had trans roommates. I was living and I'm from Vancouver, but I was living and working in Montreal. And I had a trans roommate who worked in a strip club. And him and his lover or husband had the other room because I was, helping pay the rent that way back in the day. And they were nice, they were fine, but there's a big difference between then and now. And they weren't coming after the children. Unfortunately, our school board's been brainwashed. It changed. They never said they were, now we're women and we should go in the women's bathrooms and take over women's rights and give fake milk out of our tits to babies. That would never have been thought of or said. It's dangerous to the children, the babies. This is dangerous to sexualize children in this way. And it shouldn't be done. It got really big about 5 years ago that I remember. And now it's huge and it's in our schools. It took over school boards. I mean, imagine saying, I like sex this way and teaching it in a classroom with primary children.
This is
when you're supposed to do math and science and help them do gymnastics. It's disgusting.
What ignites your passion for this, where so many people are complacent or they have been captured by the ideology?
Well, to save the children.
Yeah.
And women. Save women and children.
Yeah.
Sorry, you don't belong in our private spaces. They're getting off on it.
Of course they are.
That's all it is.
Of course they
It's
are.
men getting their rocks off.
Exactly.
Sorry I said that. What's scary is that our doctors...
I've been following Barry Neufeld's trial, his issues with the Tribunal for many years, actually. And so this is not my first time out supporting Barry. First issue is the safety and health of children, minor children, who are, I think, caught up in the system and maybe, led astray, make decisions that they would regret later on. They're minors. They're not prepared to make the choices that are being forced on them. I think.
Yeah. So.
And the other is freedom of speech. We have a Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I believe that Barry has the right to speak his mind on the subject. And also his conscience, freedom of association, freedom of faith, all that comes into it. So where does the Human Rights Council come into that? I don't know. It seems like it's an intrusion on freedom of speech on the federal charter. I believe that we're in a spiritual battle. You won't win this battle by taking on, the powers that be. You're going to have to lean on the Almighty God, creator of all things. And he said, who can stand against the beast? Well, God can stand against the beast, So I think we're here against the powers that be. This is an infringement upon our God-given rights. So Barry's a very courageous man.
Yeah.
Some have called him stubborn. Well, good for that. The older we get, the more stubborn we get. I'm Barry's age, so I know what it's like to, I guess stand up for what you believe and not be pushed around.
Sexualizing children, thinking way more about genitals than anyone should.
I'm a minor.
I'm not being filmed. No.
Are you sick? Are you trying to protect them?
No, I'm trying to protect myself. I'm trying to protect myself. Hey, no.
Wow.
You are not.
Wow. Wow. Get a grip. Get a grip.
Kill me.
Common sense is not a crime.
Hey, that's personal property.
Wow. Well, I just saw you and him in hot pursuit. That was my first knowledge of. I had no idea what was going on.
Okay.
Yes.
Anyway, it was a big one, whatever it was.
Yeah.
It was a big. Well, I heard about this event in defense of Barry Neufeld, an awesome gentleman who is a high-profile former Chilliwack School Board trustee. He had the audacity about 6 years ago, I believe it was, to stand up and say that this Soji stuff is garbage. And he got fired for it, and I have no idea how the I want to put it in quotation marks, the criminal proceedings here, how it took 6 years. But anyway, Barry is on trial at the so-called BC Human Rights Commission. I emphasize so-called. Somewhat like the so-called BC Civil Liberties Union, which our illustrious Premier was once executive director of, but he seems to have done a complete 180. And anyway, Barry is awesome. He's very deserving of all of our support. So a number of us are here and standing up for Barry. And I just saw an expression this morning on Western Standard. Common sense is not a crime. What a concept. I'd never heard that before, but
That's a nice one.
Yeah. This is a big banner that says end the corruption, but this is perhaps the more important one.
Barry is the only one that has enough clout to speak up, and because he has enough clout to speak up, he's the one that's being attacked the most. Right? Like they know who we all are, but they're not gonna take us to court, right? Whereas if they take Barry to court, then if they can beat Barry, then they essentially beat us. Like, we're not being hurtful by any means, but we should be able to say what we think in a non-vengeful, non-hateful, non-bigotry, not racial way, and say it in such a way that we can say our opinion without getting in trouble for it.
I got this website from inside from the office. They're telling me if I go to their website, which is BC Human Rights Tribunal, I should have access to, I guess, the Zoom meeting, probably. If that's how it's being done.
I think so.
But I can't figure out yet how to get into it. It appears very one-sided. It appears Barry's being targeted clearly and being singled out to be made an example of. I guess the government feels once they get Barry out of the way, they'll be able to make an example of him and set standard for further. But I don't know. Barry's been at this a long time. I'm from Chilliwack. My kids went to school in Chilliwack. Barry was doing this 20 years ago in Chilliwack. It's the same fight. It's just finally come to a head. The Soji movement's become far more involved. It's been pressed far strongly into the school system now compared to what it was when it first started. But Barry knew ahead of time.
He sure did.
He was telling everybody ahead of time. He was in our Chilliwack Progress and Chilliwack Times newspaper probably twice a month, going back 15 years. So like I said, this is just the same argument come to a head. But it is the government and the current system going after somebody on... I mean, Barry's just speaking his mind, and I think in Canada, most people believe we still have the right to speak our mind.
Look, what age are your kids now?
Well, they're almost in their 30s now.
Okay.
They're almost in their 30s.
And have they spoken to you about, their thoughts on this, what they experienced in school?
Yeah. Both of them have said to me they're glad they're out of school. They're glad that this never became to this when they were in school.
Wow.
I'm sure they wouldn't have known how to deal with it. When I talk to school-age children about these kinds of things happening in their schools, there's a very common theme around the students being pressured to act a certain way, and we all know which way that is. They're trying to motivate the children to see things their way.
Yeah.
So basically, sexual interference, if one wants to go that far, that's how I consider it. I consider it sexual interference.
Yeah.
The child's not 18 years of age and you're discussing your sexual preference with them. You're asking them to make a sexual preference and discuss it with you. That's not inclusivity. That's selectivity. That's something else. We're gonna try and be here for the last day as well of the court hearing. I believe it's mid-December sometime. We won't occupy every day because we're from the Valley. But if somebody wants to come here to Vancouver outside the Human Rights Tribunal building at 605 Robson, just stand in front of their door. They know why we're here. And you're welcome to come on down and be counted. Be one of the numbers.
Wonderful. Thanks so much.
Thank you,
Well
James.
said. Well done.
Thanks for being here.
These people are protesting against what's going on in the school systems. It's been going on for a few years. It's an indoctrination. Some people don't see it that way, but our school systems have decided to abandon math, science, social studies, basic things, and now they want to make it all about identifying as a kitty cat, or maybe you're in the wrong body and maybe you should actually think about being a boy or a girl, and you can choose and you don't have to tell your mama or your daddy. Like, that's over the top crazy. That's why I'm here. I support this group of people that have been very passionate for the last couple of years, that are actually making a lot of headway. They're actually making some changes by being at it for so many years. And they're in my city, so I'm going to show up. Usually they're somewhere else. So I'm happy to be here and support them.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And you're no stranger to protests.
No, I'm
You've
not.
been to a few. Tell me, was there any particular subject that kind of woke you up?
Well, it was 4 years ago, right? We're talking about? Yeah. I've always been kind of awake to a lot of different things. The medical mafia was always something I knew about even decades ago, which, also healing I did for myself to unlock a lot of the lies within my family system and the alcoholic family system. A lot of healing that took place in my life, so that when this did show up, the 2020 COVID thing, I just knew who to go to and go down and ask, what do you think is this going on, and does it make sense? And it's just a virus, or it's so-called nothingness. I knew about the body systems because I studied anatomy, and I knew that the immune system is strong and it doesn't make any sense. And especially after they told everybody that was going to flatten the curve to stay for 2 weeks. Well, that kind of sort of made sense. Okay, let's all stay inside for 2 weeks. But then it went on for years. Next thing you know, it's just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And anyway, I figured it out. I don't know why other people didn't, but they all got on board with 6 feet away, and the mask thing. None of it made sense to me. Once I figured out after the 2 week period, that they weren't seemingly making it okay. Okay, everybody could go back to work. It's all good. We did 2 weeks. We should be fine.
Yeah.
I'm like, why is this going on forever and ever?
I think it's funny that you're willing to give them 2 weeks, but that was where you drew the line.
I did give them, because it's, in a way, if you do have an actual virus and you have the flu, if everybody just stayed inside, maybe that's valid, logical, even in my brain that suspects a ton of things. I just went, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
Then it didn't get over. It was like, now we have to do this, and now it's going to go on forever, and now it's just going to keep doing it. Just, I'm so glad that we're actually not talking about it too much anymore, but we've got new things to talk about.
Sure do. Yeah.
New things to keep our eyes open for, and stay as positive as possible and live as a joyful life as much as possible. I think it's important to just be connecting. There's lots of some people actually figured it out, and they aren't that super aware. They just said no, and they didn't even know why. They just went, I'm just not gonna. And I know those people too,
Yeah.
They just
Wonderful.
they weren't super hyper conscious or aware of much more than they just had a really free spirit, and their free spirit just knew that it wasn't right. I valued that. I valued that a lot. I was like, oh yeah, it's cool. You just don't know why. You're just not going to do it. Bit of a renegade. Doesn't want to follow. They just know for some reason. They're not followers.
Yeah.
People that seem to have their own little guide, their own little inner spirit that can just discern. Maybe that's the word.
Well said. So,
Yeah.
Hello, Patriots. It's Herman, and today we are at Barry Neufeld's hearing. This regarding his so-called hate speech. All he said was children shouldn't get transitioned. And he wanted to charge for hate speech, but sets a dangerous precedent, of course, right? That's terrible, absolutely terrible. So, if they win with this, then they're going to come after the rest of us. So it's important that we beat this.
for sure.
It's the height of liberal lunacy. So here we are at 605 Robson Street, and we've already had the cops there. Oh, the people are going in. That's always good. Right on. Kind of stirred the pot a bit.
Yeah.
It's always crazy coming to Vancouver. Such a liberal hellhole. It's a beautiful city, though, otherwise, right? Beautiful city. So, kind of a shame. Well, somebody told me a trans person came here and kind of ruffled things up when I was gone. So then apparently he went upstairs to complain or something. That I don't know.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I look forward to doing this. Today I'm going to be using a microphone instead of a bullhorn. I think it's a little bit more audible. Are you really gay? It's like, yeah, I identify as gay. Is you going to prove that? Well, what do you want to do? Deep throat a corn dog or something like that? Like, how am I going to prove that? You don't have to prove anything if you identify, right? You put a wig on, I'm a woman. Bam. In a woman's washroom, I go. Where's the burden of proof? We don't need that. That's been thrown right out. This is anything goes, right?
Neufeld is being tried for hate crimes for simply stating that children shouldn't get transitioned. Right? That makes sense. Children can't vote. They can't drive. They can't get tattoos. How can they consent to permanent life-changing surgery? How can they consent to that? They can't. How can they consent to puberty blockers? Puberty blockers that permanently sterilize children for the rest of their life. Barry has been fighting against this woke mob for 27 years. He's been right on the front lines of this. It's insane, people. Literally insane. Are you aware that 23 states in the U.S. have criminalized gender-affirming care? The lawsuits are flying in. People are waking up to this gender-bender nonsense. Sexualizing children under the guise of inclusivity. Are you aware that archaeologists can identify the gender of human remains that are thousands of years old? In fact, the cancel culture wants to cancel archaeologists from revealing the simple truth. You can't turn a girl into a boy or a boy into a girl. You can try though. You can cut, snip, slice, dice, sew, stitch. But at the end of the day, you're not going to have much of a girl left or much of a boy left. And a child will grow up to be an adult, unable to have their own children, sterilized for life. How's that? You're getting them Lupron. Lupron is a drug given to sex offenders to chemically castrate them. That's right, and they're giving it to children. Law enforcement has an obligation to protect children from this pornography. 161.1 of the criminal code is being violated. 163.1 of the criminal code is being violated. As simple as that. Children are shown books that depict incest, drug use, butt play. What is this? This isn't your grandfather's sex education anymore. It's deplorable. You've hit new lows.
While we were upstairs in the commission, somebody came out of the building and argued with this fella here, and he ran back inside and called the police. And that's why they were here, because his feelings got hurt. But you notice how they're not asking us about the assault?
No, they never came anywhere near us.
Right?
He was assaulted at a trans rally by a tall tranny who threw him to the ground The police were standing there. I went up and I said, "Aren't you going to do anything?" And they just shrugged.
Let kids do what kids do. Climbing trees, catching frogs, riding their bicycles. You don't need to be exposed to this. Preserve childhood innocence. Let kids be kids.
Congregating here in support of Barry Neufeld. Freedom of expression is on trial. It's at a tribunal. But anyway, so we started gathering here. We're getting a lot of support from a lot of people here in Vancouver.
I met Barry at a fundraiser, and at the end of the evening, we sat together and got to know each other and talked a little bit. And he was telling me all his issues.
Can you speak to his character or what kind of a person he is?
Well, I'd say tough, because I told him he's lucky he's not dead. And he was talking about how he was invited to the very first meeting that they had talking about Soji. I don't know if you guys know the story, but they actually drove him, without letting him know where he was going, to a big cabin, and they were all secluded in the bush.
Who would say?
Him and all the trustees that were invited to be talking about Soji. And so he was telling this story, which blew me away. And in the whole cottage, he was the only one against it 27 years ago. This guy needs our help. So everybody out there.
I'm the founder of Gays Against Grooming Canada, and I'm here to support Barry Neufeld. He's under a 2-week hearing right now with the BC Human Rights Tribunal for saying things like transitioning children is child abuse.
What can you say to Barry's character? You know him quite well now.
I know
think.
Barry quite well.
Yeah,
He's an honorable man. Misunderstood by the community of Chilliwack.
Yeah, and particularly misunderstood by gay and lesbian trans people, right?
Many, I suppose. If Barry loses this hearing, then anybody who wants to stand up for the rights of children will suffer, will no longer have a voice. So we need to support her.
It sets a precedence.
It does set a precedent.
And you coined a phrase, which is on your flag, which I think is at the heart of all of this.
Aw,
Can you speak
you
about
remember?
that? Yeah.
Protect childhood innocence. Yeah,
Very
that's
important.
why we're here today.
Really good.